Welcome back to Anna Wolf in the Cabin. I've always said that everything is the same thing. Lines such as God is love, God is source, God is in me, God is me, and God consciousness. God was everything in the thunder, in the shapes, in the ancients, and in the frequencies that float all around us. God's voice is quiet, but in science it sings the yin and the yang. And if you hear those lines floating without context, they might sound a little bit abstract, maybe even like philosophy or something too hoo hoo. But here's the thing, ever since I was a child, I knew deep down that these weren't just random thoughts. I could feel them sent to me, almost like little breadcrumbs leading me to see that there's so much more going on than what meets the eye. For me, it wasn't blasphemy, never ungodly, never something to be dismissed. Instead, it was an invitation to see faith through a wider lens, one that even science is supporting. A lens that shows us we can live expansive, rich lives through practices and studies that deepen our understanding of it all. And that's exactly why I wanted to bring today's guest into the conversation. Brian Cranley is the author of The Call of Wonder, which is available now for purchase, and I'll be sure to drop the link in the description below. And his work explores the meeting point between faith, science, and the infinite. He asks the kind of questions that crack us open and invites us to live from a place of curiosity and expansion. So, let's delve in. Brian, I almost want to say it feels like I'm inviting one of my heroes onto my show, but I'm going to say it. Thank you so much for joining me, and it's a total honor.
Anna, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me on, and what an intro. That was incredible.
Well, yeah, you of course did inspire it. So, from running a thriving medical device business to now author, what fascinates me about that story, being an entrepreneur, is that you've lived what some people might call two different lives. On one hand, you're running the successful medical device, it almost comes with like a whole nother energy. And on the other, you step into the role of author. Um, and can you take us back? Like, can you take the listener back to help paint the picture for us from where you began to where you've come today? What shifted in you along that way as well?
Yes, I think you put it well when you said it's almost been like two different lives. And this book is kind of a unifying work that's brought the two different sides together, which we can talk about more. But my journey started, I was kind of interested in medicine and science and technology when I was younger. And so I studied biomedical engineering with the thought of either going into medical school or getting a job in medical devices. And I ended up doing the medical device route. Then after I got my college education, I felt like a higher calling. And so in line with the idea of being a doctor, I felt a calling towards maybe a spiritual, being a pastor, being a minister. And so I went into the seminary, and there I studied philosophy and theology for 5 years. And when I got out, I decided it was a Catholic seminary, so I decided not to go through with the ordination, but I finished the degree. And when I got out, I went back to the medical device world, and I thought that the two educations, would never mix. And so I had these two parts of me in my mind that I kept separate for 15, 20 years. And then one day watching a YouTube video, I had an aha moment that kind of hit me in the face and brought the two together. And that was the origin of this book and kind of the journey I've been on to bring the two worlds together.
I found one of your quotes and it really resonated with me because I was deeply reminded of how one can find play and miracle moments in everyday life. And
Mm-hmm.
you say on your website, the regular experience of wonder is an essential part of a meaningful life. Wonder challenges the mind, offers immediate perspective, and raises us up into something bigger than ourselves. Luckily, wonder like this is readily available for anyone to encounter. You just have to know where to look. And I love this. My job is to help you find it in abundance. and yet it's so simple, but yet it's such a big echoing message. And
Hmm.
I want to take this moment to now lead into this book, and it is full of wonder and deep, deep knowledge, as I would like to say. But how would you describe this book in an overarching sense?
Wonder is something that we experience as children. It's natural to us, and a lot of us lose it as we get older. And so, before I brought the sides of faith and science together, I really wanted to take a look at what authentic wonder is and what causes that experience of awe and sort of, immediate perspective of our place in the larger universe. What causes that to happen? And so, in the first chapter, I talk about different types of wonder. And the first one I talk about is wonder of the imagination, which is, when kids play and they imagine a scenario, or when you're thinking of your future and you're trying to imagine, as you said, being an entrepreneur and building a business. There's wonder in that. That's one type of wonder. Another type, which is super common today, is sensationalist wonder, like social media, with thumbnails and titles that are crazy, or CGI movies that bombard your senses. That type of sensationalist wonder is another type, but not the kind that leaves you fulfilled. And so what I kind of ended on is what I call authentic wonder, which I think occurs when you contemplate these larger realities that are outside of yourself, like the vastness of space, or the origin of the universe, or just going for a walk in nature and looking at the beauty of biological life, trees, animals. And the existence of God, contemplating the existence of God and learning what the philosophers and theologians of old had to say about it. And so I think wonder is an experience, and it's the one experience that unites the philosopher, the theologian, and the scientist. And I'm fascinated with it. And as I've written this book, I feel like the wonder for me has only increased, and I'm really excited about that and sharing that with others.
Were there moments in the writing process where your brain did want to almost take over and go, oh, I don't know about this? Was there ever a moment of doubt of going, what's the point in writing the book? Or were you always filled with momentum and authentic wonder? Was that kind of the thing that fueled you?
Well, it was wonder. It was the aha moment. And like you said, yes, there's always places where your brain wants to shut off and, discard it. And then I realized those are the exact places that you want to go to experience this type of wonder. So, for instance, the great mysteries, the things that are hard to figure out, such as the Big Bang, and what we're discovering about it, about the origin of the universe, it's almost too much, and you want to kind of just quit when you start looking into it. But if you stay with it, stay with the struggle, I feel like that's where the fulfillment comes from. So, yeah, and then on another note, I'm not a writer by any means, and so I had to sort of force myself to write every day to create this book. But the wonder kept me motivated, and I think it was a confirmation for me that the wonder did not go away. Rather, it increased as I wrote. So I took that as a confirmation to keep going.
Yeah. So basically, because you answered my next question, was there a moment like there in the writing where you thought, if I don't write this, if I don't finish it, there will be
Hmm.
consequences for me on a personal or even spiritual level? Did you feel like that at times?
Oh, yeah. I heard a podcast from Tim Ferriss where he talked about, when you should write a book when the pain of keeping the idea in is greater than the pain of actually writing a book. And that was
Yeah.
sort of the impetus for me to get going, because in
Oh,
college I really struggled to write, but the pain of this idea and the ideas that I had, I just felt like, it had to come out. I had to give birth to it in a sense. And so that pain got great enough where, I started writing. So here we are.
yeah, yeah. Putting that pen to paper.
Hmm.
Books like yours, they carry an energy and vibration beyond words. I mean, delving into the first chapter, that was really evident. There's a style of writing that comes very naturally for you. I don't know if you've had that moment quietly to yourself where it almost feels like you're in a room with the person. like I
It
was in a
did.
room with you, and it's a very talk-like conversation, and you're very relatable, even if your stories, I can't necessarily pull references from my own, but there is a way that you speak as if you're an old friend. And what was your deepest intention with the book? Like, what did you hope readers would walk away with? And maybe what did you hope it would awaken within you after, the last page of being written? Did you have that moment with yourself, with your family, of going, I can actually feel a shift within myself after all the studying and 4 years of dedication?
Yeah, I mean, that does my heart good to hear that it came across in a conversational tone, because that's exactly what I was trying to do. I feel like that's more authentic to my personality. And these are some really deep topics, as it's a lot of science, it's a lot of philosophy, it's a little bit of theology, but it's, Plato, Aristotle, Aquinas, really big thinkers that I struggled with. And I really wanted to get across what my teachers gave me in my education, which was translating these ideas down to a way that's relatable and applicable. And so I wanted to do that for the reader a second level and bring it down to, a conversational tone where we can talk about these big ideas. And if everyone keeps an open mind, it kind of leads you to your own ideas. So that's what I was hoping to get across, was to translate what I learned and the kind of the mental fulfillment and joy that education has given me for years and years and years. I was hoping to share that with people. So thank you for that. I appreciate that it came across that way.
Yeah, definitely. So there's of course the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Were there moments in writing of the book where what you were researching perhaps at the time was in direct correlation to something that you experienced in everyday modern age, with interaction within your business, or interaction with a family, or negotiations that might go down within the corporate setting? Were there moments like that where they were direct, yeah, parallels? Does it make sense? Is that making
It
sense? Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say I had this conversation with a friend of mine. We work in medical device sales. And so the people in this field the people that last in this field are pretty impressive. We have ex-professional athletes and high achievers. And so when you're studying Aristotle's ancient philosophy, he talks about virtue a lot. And I didn't necessarily put all this in my book, but it's fascinating how applicable it is across the centuries. So he talks about virtue as being the means between two vices. So the two extremes, like let's say courage and sales. You could be too aggressive and turn people off on one extreme, or you could be too timid and not present your argument on the other side. And so Aristotle says that in between these two extremes, you find the virtue. And applying that to sales, applying that to decisions you make in your life and ethical decisions in business, I found it fascinating. And then even in the wonder of science and theology in the world, I found that it provides a massive mental break during the day. So if you're stressing about your problems, you're stressing about hitting your next sales quota, whatever it is, your daily life, taking a 15-minute walk and remembering that the universe is much bigger than your problems. It's almost, for me, it's become like a very quick antidote to mental health, really. Just thinking about these things that are larger than yourself has been extremely fruitful for me.
Yeah, that's exactly. I can completely relate with that.
Yeah.
If I am, again, of course, being an entrepreneur, I think a lot of what I do at times feels very self-serving.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get very trapped in my brain, I would, to your point, like go and walk my dog or whatever, is just connect with nature again. But also, I would literally go and YouTube telescope footage to go
Mm-hmm.
and see, planets, and just get a perspective again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not to be so trapped in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I feel like kind of that's what your book is doing. I love how you've translated it so that anyone can really, especially me that has ADHD. I mean, I lose focus really easily. But I found, because of your conversational approach, I was in it. And you gave me a space to trust the process in learning step by step with you, in a way. And that felt really, yeah, easy. Like I was back at school, but the version of the school that I actually enjoyed. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And yeah, I tried to also put a little fable at the beginning of each chapter where you have a guide. She's Sophia, which is the personification of wisdom in general, and she kind of guides you on these adventures to help set the setting, because the content in the chapters is kind of dense, and so I wanted to give people a mental break in the book, to set the tone, but also to help, like what you were talking about, experience what it's like to learn these things. At least what it was like for me to learn them and what it felt like to experience that wonder. I feel like the fable and the character of Sophia helps the reader walk through that experience throughout the book. So I really like how that turned out.
So, where did that come from? Where did the guide idea come from?
It's fascinating. It came to me because I'm a big, like, I worry about exactly what you're talking about. I worry about, is it conversational? Is it too dense? And I knew my writing style is very compact. I'm putting a lot of facts and things together in a short amount of time. And so I just knew I needed some kind of break. And I thought of this Sophia character. It just came to me one day when I was thinking about the first chapter. And then I realized I could extend it through every chapter. But what's fascinating is a friend of mine that I did. He's one of the PhDs that endorsed the book, Dr. Nowak, Dr. Martin Nowak. He is a PhD Harvard evolutionary biologist and a believer, and he wrote just an absolutely fascinating book called Beyond and another book called Within. And his book has a female guide character as well. And I was looking him up to have him read the book and get and ask for an endorsement. And then I read his book and I was like, oh my goodness, he has almost the exact same character. So
Wow.
I called him and we spoke. And then I read, afterwards I read Boethius's famous book, Consolation of Philosophy. And he has this lady philosophy character as a guide. And so I just kind of got chills. I was like,
Wow.
maybe there's something to this, the sort of the divine feminine idea and wisdom as a person or as a guide, that kind of transcends theology, philosophy, science, and all of those fields. Pretty fascinating.
When you were a kid, did you have these thoughts? Did you have the idea that everything was one and everything, did you have clues like that? And if you did and you shared it with your loved ones, did they frown upon it or were they curious with you?
I did not have them as a kid, to be honest with you. This all started when I did the seminary education and I was talking to my dad about dreading philosophy. I had already gone to college. I didn't want to go study philosophy. It just seemed so boring and pointless and ancient. And it actually just rocked my world, and to the point that I can't forget it. It comes up all the time, but it kind of started after I learned, the Plato, the Aristotle, the Augustine, those guys. Once I had that education, it sort of formed my mind to think a certain way, and then it also sort of opened my mind to be creative with it, I guess, sort of like this book. But it started definitely after that education, I would say.
Oh, that's very cool. Why do you think?
So that's what I was hoping to give people in the book, that a summary of that education, so they can, hopefully do the same in their own life.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can definitely testify to that. I know so many people like concepts like consciousness, the divine, or even blending science and faith can feel hard for people to grasp, especially people close to me, and very threatening to their beliefs. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
I definitely think it is because of the two extremes. If you go to the two extremes, that's usually where the argument is happening, and people don't vocalize the middle ground enough. And I've studied, all the different positions a lot more since writing the book. But you have sort of the young earth, creationist, literalist, Genesis Bible people who, it's got to be exactly literal 7 24-hour periods. And Noah's flood covered Mount Everest. And science people if they're being authentic to what they know about the world, can't accept that. And then on the other extreme, you have materialist atheism, which says, the Big Bang happened just because of the laws of gravity and the negative charge of empty space, and that life happened because non-living matter conglomerated into a cell wall and started the first life. And so it seems like there's these naturalist explanations for everything, but upon closer inspection, there's a lot more mystery and miracle there in my mind. And so those two sides can't agree on anything. But in the middle, you have a lot of scientists who believe God used evolution as a means to create. And that's where I think the fascinating, for me, that's where I like to study now, is how can these things go together?
Brian, as you're speaking, all I'm thinking is, why have you not written this book much earlier? Like you are, and I feel like you should almost stop saying like you're not a writer. You're such a writer. Like you are a writer. Yeah, you're many things. You're great at many things, but just hearing you speak, it just flows out of you. And one can say, sure, but Brian's a good communicator. Okay, fine. That's one aspect. But just the way you word it, it lands. And I think that's what makes a good writer. It is telling a narrative, but leaving space for the listener to interpret and make up their own connections, right? Hopefully, that's what I always say, hopefully leaving people asking themselves better questions. And that's what you're doing. It's really, I'm getting emotional and both arms are fully goosebumped right now. So yeah, thank you. Thank you ever so much.
Oh, thank you for that. I mean, I really have imposter syndrome with writing. I'll be honest with you. It was hard for me. It took me 4 years to write and a year and a half to edit and a lot of research, but I still don't feel like a writer. So I really appreciate you saying that, because that's something I'm working on in my own self.
As someone active in the medical field, how has your own scientific work shaped your spiritual life and vice versa?
That's a great question. The medical side, I love the idea of healing and that God is a healer. So I like medical technology. I'm also just naturally interested in tech and science. So combining that has been really fulfilling for me. The sales side is interesting, though, because sales, a lot of people look on sales as a negative sort of profession. And I never meant to go into sales. I sort of ended up here, but now I'm just fascinated with it. And how can you sell and represent something in an ethical way that you really believe is beneficial for somebody? And, watching somebody get out of pain because of our device is pretty fulfilling as well. And so how do you craft a message that persuades? Another thing Aristotle and them were interested in was the gift of rhetoric. And how do you persuade and convince in a way that's not manipulative, but you're presenting a value and you're presenting a way to solve a problem? And so now I think everybody sells. Daniel Pink's book, To Sell is Human. And the better you are at it, crafting a message like you were talking about, I think it just applies to every aspect of life, relationships, work, everything.
Whoa, I never heard that. Everything you just said, I've never heard it spoken like that. Because I've always heard it in the context of, let's say, an ad agency conference where they go, they speak of selling yourself and how important it is for the product and believe in yourself. And it's all the kind of textbook ways of going about it. For me, when you talk about selling yourself, it feels for a long time, it felt very self-indulgent. It felt very self-serving. It felt like I was filling my own cup, but it didn't quite come from the right place. But that was, of course, convoluted in, I would say, I guess, foremost of not self-belief and not knowing that I was actually whole and good enough to be doing what I did at the time. Yeah, thank you for that wisdom. That was really lovely.
And I think that journey of self-belief and, self-value is something every salesperson or every person has to go through if you want to get to that point where you feel like it is coming from a good place. I definitely went through that myself.
Well, also when you're selling something that you're not necessarily, it's not your business, it's not something you've created, and therefore you now are in the space of selling it. I think there's a sense of, but why? What is it in for me? But I think to your point, there's so much stuff bigger at play than just we are all, this is something that's been landing for me, and your book came at just the right time. I keep calling it downloads, is that
Hmm.
everything is the same thing. We are all one. Now, these are all words that we hear, especially as children. We are all the same. We are all love. We are all made in God's image, all of that. But it truly manifested for me um, when I started seeing it, and I know that sounds weird, but started
Yeah.
seeing that everything was literally the same thing. And when I got the email, and I heard about your work and your book, The Call to Wonder, I was like, oh my God, there's someone who's actually taken my brain and put it on paper.
I
And
love that.
so there's proof. I'm not
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah. No, I think it's innate. I think that desire for unity is fascinating. And I didn't realize, like I said, as I wrote the book, it got stronger in me. And I've thought about it since. And you think the problem of racism, right? And where do the different races of humanity come from? We all live in different countries, different skin colors, different cultures, and that, causes a lot of the tensions. But we're not zoomed out enough. If you zoom out farther, we all come from the exact same place.
Mm.
And then if you zoom out even farther, and if you believe that all of life came from a single-celled ancestor, then we're related to the trees and animals as well in a certain sense. So it definitely, as you rewind, it becomes this beautiful unity where we are kind of one with all of creation, which
Did
is the
your
image of God.
Yeah, did you get like downloads? Would you like, do you dream and do you get messages in your dreams? Was there any like, I want to say divine spiritual guidance in that sense where you got visuals and dreams that helped you put the book together as well?
That's a great question. I'm outlining my next book, which talks about the process I use to get into a state of reception with God. And I tried my best to only put things in this book that I felt like I got while in that state of reception. And so that's the one thing. And the reason why I wanted to have full control over the editing was because I only wanted what I feel like I had received to be in this book. So yeah, I feel like it was all received, but not in the sense of a vision or a voice or a dream, but in the sense of the way I've learned to kind of sit in peace and receive from God. And when ideas just kind of come to mind when you're in that state,
Mm.
they are better ideas. And if they last, that's my other test, is do they last for years? If they maintain, they stay, and every time you're in that state of reception, then you get them again. That's a good sign that they're of that higher dimension,
Mm.
that eternal dimension. So yeah, I tried to put everything I felt I had received, whether it's through class or through, it's just ideas you have while in that state. So I would say it like that instead of a voice or a dream. But yeah,
I love that. Thank you, Brian. You're amazing.
yeah,
And I want people to read the book. I think it has, oh, I mean, I know you have hopes for it, but I think it's actually going to surpass all of that. I think The Call of Wonder is something that a lot of people should read. And for me personally, I felt moved, yet rooted, yet taken to a whole nother world. And it feels magical. It's the only way I can describe it. So thank you so much.
Anna, thank you. You're literally making my day. I really
Yeah, no,
appreciate that.
really, yeah, it's a gift. It's a real gift to the world. I've got a last section for you for this interview. So I'm going to do something different. I'm going to give you a few prompts,
Okay.
and I'd like you to just complete the sentences with whatever comes to mind. So no overthinking, just the first truth that rises up. Love is.
God,
Earth is.
our home
Humans are.
in God's image,
Belief is.
reconciling with reality,
Well, my brain is.
an instrument of the soul as well as the body.
Last one, science is
the discovery of how God created the world.
Brian, thank you for your time. You're amazing, and I wish you all the best. And I'm going to make sure to drop all the links, the necessary links to find your work, to find your website. Do you want to tell people a little bit more about where they can find you?
Sure. BrianCranley.com, BrianCranley.com is my website. If you sign up there, you can read chapter 1 for free. You can order the book through there. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and bookshop.org. And I'm really excited to spread the word. So thank you so much for having me on, Anna.
Thank you, Brian. I wish you all the best, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.